Being a retail executive these days, it's a whole new ball game.
It really is.
Keeping our teams, connected,
Oh,
informed.
yeah.
It feels like it's more crucial now than ever.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, it's like the way things are changing. Yesterday's playbook, it just doesn't work.
Nope.
So we're going deep today
Okay.
on how to, I guess you could say, crack the code of retail communication in 2025.
I like that.
We're going to be looking at this article from Multimedia Plus.
Okay.
It's called How Speaking Their Language Will Redefine Retail Communication in 2025.
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
I think we all know this, but it's not just about sending out a memo or two anymore.
Right. And that's what's so fascinating about this whole deep dive. We're really talking about how to connect with the modern retail workforce, which is so different.
It is.
And especially when you think about, the article points this out, that 31.86% of retail executives identify communicating product knowledge as their biggest hurdle.
Okay, so we're talking nearly a third of retail execs are struggling with this specific thing.
Yeah. They said it was their biggest hurdle.
So it's got to be more than just a tech problem.
Oh, for sure.
What's the real world impact here for us as retail executives?
Right.
We're talking about, customers being frustrated, lost sales, or is it even bigger than that?
You're totally right. It is about the bottom line.
Okay.
But it goes deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
I think this statistic really highlights a fundamental shift that we're seeing in the retail workforce.
Okay.
These associates coming in now, they're digital natives.
Right.
They expect communication to be as seamless and engaging as the apps that they're using in their personal lives.
Yeah.
Think about it. If we're stuck using these outdated methods, we're really missing the mark.
Right.
And we could even be alienating, a huge part of our workforce.
So it's like we're trying to explain, the latest TikTok trend using a fax machine.
Exactly.
No wonder we're having trouble.
Right.
But, realistically, how much can we adapt to these expectations?
Right.
Can we really run a retail operation like it's a social media feed?
That's a great question. And that's where, really understanding the nuances is so important.
Okay.
We can't just slap a like button on everything and call it a day.
Right.
But there are definitely lessons to be learned from how people are engaging with information outside of work.
Okay.
Think about it. Social media is all about visual content. It's instant updates, and it's two-way communication.
Okay.
These are things that we can and I think should be incorporating into our internal communication strategies.
So instead of sending out a wall of text in an email,
Right.
we should be sharing a quick video update on a new product.
Yeah.
Or, a visually driven merchandising guide instead of a boring old memo.
Exactly. And the article gives some great examples of this in action.
Sure.
Imagine a manager sending their team a quick visual update on a new display, complete with annotated photos or even a short video tutorial.
Oh, right.
They can send task reminders through a platform that's accessible, right on their phones.
Right.
So it's really mimicking the types of notifications that they're used to getting.
Right.
It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just speaking their language.
It sounds so simple.
No, right?
But I can see how that would make a difference.
Yeah.
But what about the downsides? Is there a risk of, information overload or distractions if we make everything feel like a social media feed?
Well, and that's where this idea of tailoring the communication comes in.
Sure.
And this is a key point in the article. It's not about turning, everything into this constant stream of notifications.
Okay.
It's about understanding that different levels of your organization have different needs and priorities.
Right.
Your store teams need different information than your district managers.
Right.
And they both need something different from your regional leaders.
So instead of this one-size-fits-all,
Exactly.
we need to be more targeted with our communication.
Yes.
And making sure the right information is getting to the right people.
Right.
In a format that they'll actually engage with.
Precisely your store teams on the front lines.
Yeah.
They need those quick, clear updates on things like promotions, inventory changes, visual merchandising guidelines.
Okay.
They need that information in a way that they can digest it quickly because they're rarely sitting at a desk.
They're on their feet all day.
Exactly.
While our district managers are probably more focused on, tracking progress across multiple stores.
Absolutely.
Making sure that, promotions are being executed correctly.
Yeah.
and identifying problems before they get too big.
Exactly. And for those regional leaders, they need that high-level view to make sure that broad strategies are being implemented effectively.
Yeah.
They need data and insights, but they also need to be able to communicate those big picture goals in a way that resonates down to the store level.
So we're not just, chucking all the old tools out and, replacing them with shiny new apps.
It's bigger than that. Yeah. It's about creating this communication ecosystem that really caters to the unique needs of each level of the organization.
I like that, a communication ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And the article goes on to highlight how this type of tailored, targeted communication can be a real game changer when it comes to associate engagement and motivation.
Yeah.
They actually cite research that shows how visually engaging content can boost confidence and performance.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you feel like you have the information that you need in a format that's easy to understand, you're going to naturally feel more confident and equipped to do your job.
Yeah. And confident, well-informed employees, they're going to translate to happy customers and a healthy bottom line.
100%. It's all about empowerment.
Okay.
And this is where things start to get really interesting. So the article goes on to kind of talk about how this need for tailored communication is really sort of colliding with this rapidly changing retail world.
It's moving so fast.
Yeah, we're not even just talking about evolving demographics anymore.
Right.
I mean, that's part of it, but it's the speed at which trends are shifting.
Yeah.
The competition is just heating up.
It is.
And, customer expectations are skyrocketing.
Yeah, it feels like we're constantly playing catch-up.
Right.
So how can we even begin to build a communication strategy that can keep pace with all that?
Well, it's a really valid concern, and the article argues that we need to kind of move beyond these one-off solutions and really start thinking about a more integrated approach.
What do you mean by that?
Like, imagine a centralized platform.
That could combine communication, task management, even training all into a single streamlined system.
So instead of having like separate tools for sending messages, for tracking projects, for delivering training materials, we're talking about putting it all into one central hub.
Yes.
That would streamline things, but could it be overwhelming for some of the team?
It could. And that's why the article emphasizes that the key here is user experience.
Okay.
These platforms need to be intuitive, mobile-friendly, and visually engaging.
Okay.
Just like, those consumer apps we were talking about.
Right.
It's about meeting our teams where they are.
Yeah.
Technologically speaking.
And if we can make that transition seamless, this kind of an integrated system could actually make things easier for everyone.
Absolutely.
Less passwords to remember.
Exactly.
Less toggling between different apps.
Yeah.
Just a single source of truth for everything. And this ties into another major trend that the article highlights.
Okay.
Real-time updates.
Okay.
Because, in the fast-paced world of retail, things change constantly.
All the time.
New promotions are launched. Product recalls, visual merchandising guidelines.
Right.
We need a way to communicate these changes instantly across all levels of the organization.
Otherwise, we're back to playing that game of telephone.
Right.
Where the message gets a little more distorted every time it's passed.
Yeah.
And by the time it reaches the front lines, it's completely different.
Exactly. And that leads to confusion, frustration, and ultimately it's a disconnect between our strategies and how they're executed.
Yeah.
Real-time updates ensure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
Regardless of their location or their role.
So I'm picturing a scenario where like a regional manager could send out an instant update about a new promotion to every store in their region and be able to track who's seen it, who's acknowledged it, and who's actually started implementing it.
Absolutely. That's exactly the kind of functionality we're talking about. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh.
The article goes on to discuss how some platforms are even incorporating multimedia elements into these real-time updates.
Wow.
So instead of just like a text-based message, you can imagine receiving a quick video from your district manager that's explaining a new visual merchandising concept.
Wow.
Or, an interactive training module that walks you through the steps of a new procedure.
It's like we're finally catching up to the way that people actually consume information in their everyday lives.
I know.
But are we saying that every piece of communication needs to be like a multimedia extravaganza?
No, you're right to bring that up. It's about finding the right balance.
Okay.
And, understanding which tools are most effective for different situations. Not everything needs to be a video
Right.
or an interactive infographic.
Right.
But the point is, we now have the technology
Yeah.
to make our communications so much more engaging,
Right.
more digestible, and ultimately more impactful.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
What's that?
It's not just about adopting new technology to be trendy.
Yeah.
It's about leveraging technology to solve those real business challenges.
Absolutely.
To bridge the gap between our corporate strategies and the frontline execution.
Yes.
And to empower our teams to be more effective,
Yes.
more informed, and ultimately more successful.
You nailed it.
Okay.
And that brings us to a point that the article emphasizes repeatedly.
Okay.
We need to move beyond simply sharing information and really focus on fostering a sense of connection and community within our organizations. Especially when we're talking about a workforce that's increasingly, dispersed, mobile, and digitally connected. We have to find ways to build those relationships.
Right.
And create a shared sense of purpose.
So we're talking about more than just communication.
Yeah.
We're talking about culture.
Exactly. And the article highlights a tool that's specifically designed to address this.
What's that?
Insight posts.
Insight posts. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
Tell me more about this platform.
Yeah.
And how it helps us speak their language.
So think of it kind of like a social media platform that's built specifically for retail teams.
Okay.
It allows managers to share updates, announcements, motivational content in a format that feels really familiar and engaging to associates who are used to scrolling through Instagram or TikTok.
So it's not just a top-down broadcast system.
Right.
We're talking comments,
Yeah.
likes, maybe even the ability to share ideas.
Yes.
Best practices across stores or regions.
It's that two-way dialogue, that sense of community and shared purpose that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
It's giving our teams a voice, making them feel heard.
Right.
And creating a space where they can connect.
Okay.
Share their experiences, learn from one another.
But is all of this really necessary?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, our associates are there to do a job.
Right.
To sell products. To provide great customer service. Do we really need to go to all this trouble to make them feel connected and engaged? Is that a little too touchy-feely for retail?
It's a question a lot of executives are grappling with.
Yeah.
But the research is really clear.
Okay.
Employees who feel connected to their company, their team, their purpose, they're more productive, they're more engaged, and they're less likely to leave.
Yeah.
And in retail, where turnover is so high.
Yeah, it is.
That can make a huge impact on your bottom line.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture.
Good.
It's not just about, warm and fuzzy feelings.
Right.
It's about creating a workplace where our associates actually want to show up.
Exactly.
Where they feel valued and appreciated.
Yeah.
And where they're motivated to do their best work.
That's what speaking their language is all about.
Okay.
It's understanding what makes them tick, what motivates them, what frustrates them, and then using that knowledge to build a communication strategy that really supports their success.
This has been really insightful.
Good, I'm glad.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the changing workforce to the need for real-time updates, tailored communication, and the potential of platforms like Insight Posts.
Absolutely.
But where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How do we as retail executives take all of this information and actually put it into action?
That's a great question, and that's the perfect lead-in to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We're going to explore some practical steps that you can take to start implementing these concepts in your own organizations, and also talk about some potential pitfalls to avoid. Because while the technology is certainly important, it is just a tool.
Right.
The real key to success lies in understanding your people, speaking their language, and building a communication strategy that really empowers them to thrive.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to dive in. Let's continue this conversation in part 3. All right, so we've talked about the challenges. We've explored some of the potential solutions. But now let's get down to, like brass tacks.
Okay.
For those of us who are, leading retail teams, what are some things that we can actually do to implement these ideas?
Or like, where do we even begin?
Yeah. Where do we start?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
It can feel a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it can.
But the article suggests a really simple starting point.
Okay.
Listening. Before you go and overhaul your entire communication system, take some time to really understand, your team's needs.
Okay.
What are their pain points?
So are we talking about sending out surveys, holding focus groups?
Yeah.
What does listening actually look like?
I mean, all of that can be helpful.
Okay.
But sometimes the most valuable insights come from just observing and interacting with your teams.
Okay.
Walk the floor. Shadow your associates.
Okay.
Listen to their conversations.
Okay.
Pay attention to their frustrations.
Right.
Where are those communication breakdowns happening?
Okay.
What tools are they already using effectively?
Right.
What are they craving more of?
So it's we need to become, anthropologists of our own organizations.
That's a great way to put it.
Studying the communication patterns of our teams.
Exactly.
In their natural habitat.
And once you've kind of gathered those insights, you can start to map out a communication strategy that addresses those specific needs. So maybe your store teams are struggling to keep up with, constantly changing visual merchandising guidelines.
It happens.
Could you implement a system where they receive those updates through short, engaging videos?
Okay.
Directly on their phones.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or maybe your district managers are just drowning in emails and spreadsheets.
All the time.
Could you streamline their communication and reporting through a centralized platform?
Makes sense.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about finding that one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
You might need to experiment with different approaches for different teams.
Okay.
Different roles, even different individuals.
This kind of brings up something I've been thinking about.
What's that?
We talk a lot about the benefits of things like insight posts.
Right.
But what about those of us who are working with maybe tighter budgets or more limited resources?
That's a fair question.
Do we have to, invest in a fancy platform to be successful?
Well, the good news is it's not all about the tech. Okay. While platforms like insight posts can definitely be valuable, there are tons of ways to improve communication without, breaking the bank.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just about making small but meaningful changes to your existing processes.
So even if we can't afford to do a complete system overhaul, there are still things that we can do to make things better.
Start by thinking about what information is most critical for your teams to have? Are you delivering it in a way that's clear, concise, easily accessible? Can you incorporate more visuals, streamline your messaging, maybe find ways to make it more engaging?
What about the data piece that we talked about earlier? Do we need sophisticated analytics to track whether or not our communication is working?
I mean, data can be really powerful. But you don't have to go super fancy right away. Start by tracking some basic metrics.
Okay.
Email open rates, engagement with internal content, even anecdotal feedback from your teams.
Okay.
This will give you a baseline to measure your progress and identify areas for improvement.
So a lot of what we've been talking about comes down to a shift in mindset.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the tools. It's about thinking about communication as a strategic imperative.
Yes.
A key driver of employee engagement. And, ultimately business success.
You said it perfectly.
The retailers that are going to win in the future are the ones who prioritize communication, who invest in understanding their teams, and who create a culture where feedback is valued and information flows freely.
You got it.
This has been a great deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much.
We really have.
From the changing needs of the workforce to real-time updates, tailored communication, insight posts, all that good stuff.
All of it.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a few key takeaways.
I like it.
First, remember that your frontline associates, they're your most valuable asset.
For sure.
They're the face of your brand.
They are.
They're interacting with customers every day.
Every day.
So invest in their success. By giving them the information that they need. In a format that works for them.
Absolutely.
Second, don't be afraid to experiment. There's no magic bullet solution out there. Try different approaches. Get feedback. See what works.
Iterate until you find what works.
And finally, never underestimate the power of just listening.
So important.
Pay attention to what your team needs.
Yes.
Be open to feedback. Create a culture of open communication.
That's it.
When you speak their language,
yes,
you unlock so much potential.
You really do.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about. Hopefully some actionable steps.
I hope so.
To take back to our own teams.
Absolutely.
As always, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
Keep experimenting and keep the conversation going.